How does spam get sent to you? Via botnets, via compromised computers, someone's hacked into a computer, via theft of service, someone's stolen a password, or use identity theft to buy an account that isn't theirs, or via other ISPs networks that would prohibit spam. After all, when you sign up to an acceptable use policy. Well, there's your answer. Botnets, Criminal Activity, Computer Misuse Act. Compromised computers, same thing. Theft of service, theft, no question about it. And via ISP networks that prohibit spam, well, that's not quite as obvious, but if you sign a contract with the provider and you have the intent at that time to breach the contract, that is, in law, fraud. So we have a lot of criminality that needs handling and that isn't being handled. What harm can spam do to you in your business? A lot of spam is targeted at getting the recipient to open an attachment or go to a website. Now, we've heard most of this, so I'm going to skip through this section because, although it does need saying again, I'm tight on time. And let's be clear about one thing. Although a speaker earlier today said that this was coming from China, yes, but it's the Russians hiring the servers in China and tunneling to them that are then connecting to your computer to steal the information. We talked to the Chinese ISPs. I've been in conversation with one this afternoon. By the way, we're never off duty. During this morning's session, I shut down 2 phishing sites. We have to be multi-skilled. And the Chinese tell us categorically where this is coming from. It's coming from Russia. If you disconnect China from the rest of the internet, which should be a questionable thing, the Russians would move somewhere else with similar corruption problems. Brazil is a distinct possibility. South America, we've seen quite a bit of it, and so on. Malaysia, of course, too. Phishing spam we all know about. It's getting more sophisticated. But sometimes they aren't after your money. They're after credentials to use your resources to steal somebody else's money so they don't get the blame. This isn't something that's picked up as easily. People don't look for this sort of thing. Advanced fee fraud is still very common. That's the Nigerians we heard the question about earlier. Why is there so much of a problem in Nigeria? Well, apart from the fact that it's pretty well in their culture to do this, what isn't understood is that the Nigerian phone companies have introduced the GSM data that we have here, but they haven't been able to afford the logging software to show which users of prepaid cards are sending the emails that are causing the complaints. So they can't shut them off. If you buy software for your GSM switch, the software for logging is extra, and they're not a particularly wealthy economy down there, not that any of us are at the moment. So, this shows you some of the harm. Innocent people can suffer images. Employees don't like having to receive pornographic images. They have legal rights now in this country. So if you receive spam with illegal images, the chances are your employees might get an action or right against you. Drugs, of course, go without saying, is a problem. So where do the police fit in? Well, let me explain a few things. One of the most fundamental problems with e-crime, and it's one thing I had great difficulty in getting ministers and civil servants to understand in London, is that it's different because you cannot detect for certain where the criminal is. You may see his server, and that might be in Romania or China or Russia or the Ukraine, very commonly the Ukraine, but you don't know who's connecting to that server from where. Without the cooperation of authorities in that country, and I mean immediate cooperation, you aren't going to find out. If somebody has been running a scam attack out of a server in Germany, say, and you know where that is, then you've got to get the police in that country to do something before the guy moves on to the next server, which might well be in a different country. Okay. Let me tell you what happened recently. We found a botnet being controlled out of a server in Germany. through the good offices of UK law enforcement, we contacted their equivalents in Germany, the BKA, who were very helpful because the reference had come from UK law enforcement. We told them where the hard disk and the computer was. We told them that the ISP was expecting them, and they actually went round and seized the hard disk. I was impressed, until I got an email from the police officer in that part of Germany. "We have seized the hard disk. What do you want us to do with it?" My heart sank. The computer in Germany was being used to control an international botnet, which was committing a crime in most countries in the world, because that's what botnets are like. It wasn't committing a crime in Germany. He had no victim. Most police forces will not act unless they have a victim in their jurisdiction. Where e-crime is concerned, the jurisdiction of the victim and the jurisdiction of the server and the jurisdiction of the criminal will be 3 separate jurisdictions. There is no incentive on any police officer to investigate a crime requested by another country where the criminal is in a third country. That is a plain fact. Unless we can change that and make it a priority, then e-crime has to be a pretty high-level issue in one particular case to get it investigated. The Met have got a very good unit dealing with botnets, but it's still small. They can't handle the sort of load, and their procedures can't cope with the sort of load that matches the level of botnet activity that we're seeing. If we sent everything relevant to the police to handle, we would be carrying out a denial of service attack on the police, and we're not prepared to do that. So there just is not the resource. Quite a few months ago, I think it was May or June of this year, I worked closely with the Met to identify and get taken down a total of 9 command and control servers at one London colo. The same botnet, but they had 9 servers set up expecting one to be taken down. We traced the connection to the Ukraine, but then we traced the connection from the Ukraine back to a different colo in London. That colo provider wasn't cooperative. We needed a ripper order. We also needed the papers to seize the hard disks belonging to the computers in the first colo, which had been taken out of service by a very, very helpful administrator there. Would it surprise you if I told you that those hard disks are still in the store cupboard at that ISP waiting for the Metropolitan Police to process the paperwork? I find that pretty disgraceful myself. It makes it very difficult to believe that our government takes e-crime seriously. We do. We provide data free of charge about the sources of spam for ISPs. We provide data for the ISPs to help keep the bad guys off their networks. And of course, we help the police.